services. So it would be as they provide brokerage services, as it's defined in the 18.85 RCW. So we're looking at the 18.5 RCW as the definition, but no later than the firm broker's drafting documents or records identified in the 308124C WAC on behalf of the principal, whichever is the soonest. So looking at those two, whichever would be the soonest of those two, that's when those are the parameters that we're looking into.
I'm going to step in here for a second. Bill Dutra, will you join us and walk through the scenario for me, please?
Sure. Good morning, commissioners. So, Commissioner John Schroeder, to talk about your scenario, and thank you for identifying that showing property is a real estate brokerage service as defined in the statute. So the intent of this rulemaking is if you start showing individuals property within 5 days, send them the brokerage service agreement. Obviously, you cannot force them to sign it. Our audit team will look. Did you make the attempt to do this? Did you send them something? Or within 5 days or signing of agreements or whichever is sooner. So if you are showing them property, you've showed them 2 or 3 days worth of property, you've sent them that brokerage service agreement, and now you're starting to draft a purchase and sale agreement. Let's just say that you're going to sign it then if it's within like the second day that you're showing them property. So what we're trying to do is put a guardrail around this for both consumers of real estate brokers and licensees to show that you've made the attempt to have your client sign a brokerage service agreement.
I think so. So in an audit, in other words, you would be satisfied if I could produce an email with, I'll call it the BBSA, if I'm using the
Sure.
the form 41 Buyer Brokerage Services Agreement. The auditor would be satisfied with an email with the BBSA attached, even if the consumer did not sign it.
Absolutely. We cannot force anybody to sign an agreement. We are looking to see, did you meet your statutory obligation by providing this for them? You know as well as I do that many licensees throughout your career probably sent somebody something for them to sign, whether it be a listing agreement or something, and they decided not to sign it. You moved on from somebody else. We're looking to see that you did that. Our auditors are not going to go that in depth to go out and track down your client to say, when did we start this? Was it within that time frame? That will find out in an investigation if someone files a complaint in that investigation. Here the guardrails are, we would like to have some, we've taken a lot of input from the industry. I've spoken to many different industry members as well and industry attorneys who have adopted some of this practices prior to 2024 as well. Going down this pathway, that's why we're holding these informations. It's not that we did not appreciate all of the work that was done by the subcommittee. Again, we take all of that advice. We bring this forward. Just because we go down this process of the rulemaking process and listening sessions and receiving feedback does not mean it is going to pass or it will go in that direction. But we need to go through this process to show that we went through this process, and this is where we're at.
So given that under that scenario, and just want to be clear that I think that most brokers are going to be doing this correctly and will honor what was intended with the legislation. But there are also some within our industry and every industry, there are some bad apples. So in that situation, I can completely see some brokers basically saying, hey, I'm required by law to send this to you, not via email, but just verbally. I'm required by law to send this to you for buyer's agency. That's the requirement. I just have to send it to you. You don't actually have to sign it. But I'm going to send it to you. And then they don't actually talk about how they're going to get paid, how the industry works, how all of these things were. The reason for this legislation was because of confusions around commissions and things like that. If I can easily see a scenario in which the broker just tells the client that I'm just gonna send this to you. You don't actually have to sign it because you don't actually have to sign it, and as long as I've delivered it to you, and then we'll just continue doing what we've done before without actually having the conversation of how everything is going to work, agency and everything else, which was the intent of the legislation.
And I think I would just tack on to that, that my understanding of the legislation is if you do not have a signed agreement, you are not entitled to compensation. So I would caution anything coming out from DOL that would indicate that simply providing, it's not like providing the pamphlet. It's not like providing the real estate brokerage in Washington pamphlet, which is informational. My understanding of the legislation is if you don't have a signed brokerage services agreement, you are not entitled to compensation, which then is maybe outside the purview of investigation and audit at DOL. This now becomes really a more civil action between the client, but I'm 100% with Commissioner Chang. I would really, really dislike something like that coming from the commission saying, oh, you're good as long as you've sent it. The objective here is that the conversation happens and that the buyer and the buyer brokerage sign that agreement, not dissimilar from what we've done for the ages between listing brokers and sellers. We're just trying to get buyers and buyer brokers on the same page as listing brokers have been on for years.
No, I appreciate that, and we definitely do appreciate that. And you're right, that may be the intent that you had. Again, we do not have a statute that requires or that we can force someone to sign any agreement that is out there. I was referencing what are we looking for in our audits, and our investigations are a little bit different. The audits are looking, did you deliver something that is required? Yes, we'd love for everybody to sign something, but we cannot force someone to sign an agreement. You're right, Commissioner John Schroeder, it is going to go down if, in using Commissioner Chang's example, if people are just going to mail it in, as a lack of a better word, those are the bad actors. That's what keeps us in business of investigating things, are the bad actors. There's no amount of rules or statutes that we can put in place that it's going to overcome people's morals and ethics to do something right or wrong. Our job is to set minimum guidelines and guide rails, which are the statutes and rules. We do think that people should be having those conversations to understand that. And when those complaints come in is when we're going to start recognizing who some of these individuals and firms are that are not meeting the requirements and the expectations of the statutes and rules as we move forward on this.